I mean, somehow we always manage to have something new and interesting to talk about in BTCC.
It's always a challenge. I swear that every year it gets harder and harder.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And you know the season's starting when I'm getting interviewed by you as well. So,
yeah, I mean, we've had a really, really great response. It's been really, really nice. It's been really heartwarming. I've been in the Championship a while now, and I don't think I've ever seen a winter with as much engagement and interaction as what we've been doing.
You just never know in the Btcc what's going to happen next. That's why I like it so much.
Hello and welcome to my 2026 British Touring Car mid-season review. We've only had 4 rounds, but we're into a very long summer break, so what better time to look back on what has been a very interesting start to the season, rate all of the drivers, how they've done so far, and hear from some of them themselves to see how they would reflect on the season so far. So there's plenty to get through, lots to discuss, so let's crack on. Starting off our 2026 grid, in 21st place is Max Buxton. I guess his first full season in BTCC, and he did the second half of last season, so take that what you will. Obviously very new to the grid, lots to learn still, but I think he's done a good job. Stayed out of trouble, had the odd bit of bad luck with car problems and incidents, and also Alton Park was ill, so really unfortunate there. That kind of put him on the back foot for the rest of the weekend, which it's not easy when the grid is this close, so coming in as a new driver is going to be a challenge, but I think he's doing a good job. He's got a good team around him.
Yeah, obviously the team's absolutely mega. Obviously this is our first full season together, so there's still obviously bits I'm trying to learn from the team and vice versa. So again, it's a massive learning curve, but at the same time, we're working really well, we're gelling really well. Josh is, I learn a lot from Josh and have done last season and times before. So it's definitely a big bonus to having a teammate with experience.
Next up in 20th place is Nicholas Hamilton. What a start to the season he has had. I would say the best start to a BTCC season he's ever had. I know he had that amazing result back in 2023 where he came 6th at Donington. But even still, he's been so consistent this year. The Snetterton weekend in particular, not only did he obviously get that Jack Sears win, which his aim for this season was to get on the podium, to get a trophy of some sort, but the rest of that whole weekend, he was so consistent, mixing it in with previous race winners and champions and that sort of thing. So he was there or thereabouts all that weekend. So he very much deserved a good result. And I think another Jack Sears win maybe will come before the end of the season and more points finishes without a doubt. Just ahead of him is our, I guess, only rookie for this season, and that is Lewis Selby coming in with the Napa Racing UK team. It's an interesting one because he's come in with a big team, and I interviewed Paul O'Neill at the start of the year, and he rightfully said there's no hiding in that team because of your teammates and everyone's going to see what you're up to. But he's been with that team for a little while when he was in Mini Challenge, so the step up I imagine was quite nice actually. He knew a lot of the people around him, and that sort of thing is ideal. It's had its challenges, but he's got his elbows out and he's gone touring car racing, which is what we want to see. We don't, we want to see drivers giving it a all, and especially in that mid pack, you've got to really fend for yourself and fight hard to stay competitive. There's been a few times where maybe he's gone a bit over the top with contact and things like that, particularly at Brands Indy, but he's held his hands up on social media and highlighted that. And I think a lot of drivers that come into the touring cars for the first time, they do have that. Charles Rainford had that last season when he was maybe a little bit soft with his sort of race car craft and attacks to start with, and then went a bit too aggressive at other times. But I think he's doing a good job, and he's got very high standards, and he'll want to keep on pushing for the rest of the season.
Hopefully. I seem to getting a few pats on the back from the team, so I'm just doing as I'm told, really. I've got a fantastic team with me, some very good teammates who are really helping educate me in the new car.
18th place then is Restart Racing's James Dorlin, his second season in the BTCC. I suppose a little bit of pressure for him getting back on the grid because he missed the end of last season, unfortunately, when he was at Toyota. And we saw, I think, last season there were some real sparks of pace and great moments for him, particularly in qualifying. He's a very quick driver. And I think this start of the season, it was great to see him back, obviously, in the championship. He obviously worked very hard to get there. But it was he's had a fair amount of bad luck with just little things, car problems. There's been times where he's had to turn his weekend around completely, where qualifying he's not gone out much because of car problems or things like that, and he's still fought back through. So despite the things that have happened, he's still fought hard to get some good results, and I think there's definitely more to come from him when sort of he gets some good luck, because like I said, it's definitely been a challenging start to the season so far.
No, and I think especially this year it's very competitive that you can have a really good race and still end up 15th. So I think tomorrow is the important day. The Saturday is you've got to be in a good position after Saturday to kind of start the Sunday right. But we'll see. I think it's, like you said, the car is good. We're still learning and still moving forward with it, and there's definitely more to come. But we're getting there, and I think race 3 on the wrong tyre, and we still managed to hold our own for the majority. It shows what we can do. So, yeah, like I said, it's just a problem-free day on Saturday, and we'll see what we can do then.
Next up in 17th place is Sam Osborne, who obviously got a race win end of last season at Silverstone, which I guess will give him a big confidence boost. It's been a bit of a quiet one so far for him, but like I said, when the grid's so close, I know it's only 21 cars this season at the minute, but it is so close, so you have to be on your A game to be up there, and one bit of bad luck and that really can put you down the order and derail your weekend. So I suppose getting that win end of last season will give him a good amount of confidence, but like I said, been a bit of a challenging one so far for him. 16th place then is the first of the 2 Plato Racing entries of Dan Rowbottom. Obviously new car for this year, new team. He's obviously part team owner, so he's got kind of 2 hats on, I suppose. So today we're rating one of those positions as a driver, but obviously he has got to consider he's team owner as well, or part team owner, so he's got a lot to juggle. I think he's definitely going to be a lot lower down in the standings than he would have liked and the team would have liked. Starting this season there was a lot of hype, and when that car was revealed I think everyone was very impressed, and it does look fantastic, and it definitely has its moments, and we've seen that so far of it being quick, and I think it will be a good car in the not too distant future. Obviously Dan got that race to pole win at the very first weekend, which what an amazing story that was. Him achieving that on the first ever race to pole at Donington was brilliant. But then it's been a bit challenging since then. Brands Indy particularly was a bit of a nightmare for him and the team. But you've got to remember they're still working things out. The team kind of only got up and running with setting up bank accounts and stuff last summer. So they've not been in business long. And to build a touring car team from the ground up is a huge job. So to have done it in that short space of time to such a high standard as well, they're not doing anything by halves. All you have to do is look on their social media and see the effort they put into their media and their marketing. And in touring cars these days, who has a test livery? No one else does really, do they? So the people they're getting on board, they've got all the best engineers, they're getting some great partners and sponsors on board as well. And to be, especially at Donington when they're fighting towards the front, they're fighting the BMW and the Toyota Corolla and all these cars and the Hyundais. And these are all cars that have been on the grid for years. They've had years and years and years worth of development. The BMW 3 Series and the Toyota Corolla, they came in back in 2019. That was a long old time ago. I was still in school at that point. And, they're still up there fighting despite the lack of development. So come the second half of the season, I think they'll be right up there. We've got this long summer break, which actually they might have come just at the right time for the team. So definitely a challenging one, but still very impressive in my opinion.
Yeah, obviously, but we hold ourselves in really high esteem and high standard, and we know where we want to be. I've been in the championship for long enough now, so I know how to drive an Btcc car. It's just about making it work for us. Adam and I have got a relatively similar driving styles, so that's good, so we can work together. Adam's been doing, Adam did a great job at Brands Race 3, started 15th, finished 6th, so he did a fantastic job. He extracted some good performance in the car. We've just got to keep going, keep working away. We've got a lot of new relationships. Obviously, we're using M Sport for the engines, so we're building our relationship with them, and we're working really well and working really closely. And they're really helping us out. Trying to extract as much as we can from the car. We're all working and pushing hard together.
15th place is the other Restart Racing Hyundai of Chris Smiley. Again, been a little bit under the radar, but still racking up points where he can. Been unlucky at times not to make use of reverse grid draws and things like that. But there's some circuits coming up later in the season that he always runs well at, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. But like I said, unfortunate that he's had some bad luck as well here and there, but I keep saying it, and I'll say it a few times more in this review, I'm sure. The grid is so close.
Yeah, it's a challenge every year, but I think this year we're coming in, with the right tools to do the job and the right people, and yeah, me and James will push each other on.
14th place is Dexter Patterson in the Powermax Racing Audi, another new car for this season. It's been really great to see so many new shells and shapes and models of car on the grids, because it's been a while since we've had a new one. But yeah, Dexter, he's in 14th, probably the best start to a season for him that he's ever had. When I interviewed one of his teammates, Aidan Moffat, at the start of the season, he rightfully pointed out that Dexter's never really had the opportunity in a real kind of front-running car, and the Audi's not far off that. I think with a few more months of development, it will be there. But he joined the touring car grid with Aidan back in 2022 in the Infinity, when in that year the car just wasn't competitive at all. The hybrid regulations came in and kind of ruined what was a very, very strong touring car. He then went obviously to times at Team Hard and Unlimited Motorsport, more recently in the Cupra, which the car maybe wasn't up to scratch and didn't give him the results he wanted. And he's a champion and a very quick driver, and has been in a lot of other categories. So those results will continue to grow, and he's been very consistent. Plenty of top tens, particularly that opening weekend at Donington, and had a bit of bad luck at Brands and stuff. So yeah, more good results coming from him, I think. And that car is looking very good. So it's great to see him in a machine that's going to really help him out as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is the first time I've really worked with, I guess, a different team. Everywhere I've been, it's sort of been the same sort of people, so it's quite different for me to have new faces everywhere. But no, it's exciting. I think the project looks like it's building up to be a good one. Seeing it for the first time today, it looks proper when it's out on the ground. So no, it should be good to get a shot of it.
13th place, unlucky for some, is Adam Morgan, next to the Plato Racing cars. Been pretty consistent, again, similar to obviously Dan Robot. I'm just building up mileage in the car, getting as much data as possible, because they had a handful of pre-season test days, but probably not as much as they would want, obviously. So for the most part, Adam Morgan staying out of trouble. Unlucky in that final race at Alton Park. He got caught up in that incident with Aaron Taylor-Smith. Actually, his whole Alton Park weekend was a bit of a nightmare. Started off pretty promising. There's always a circuit he's ran well round, to be fair. But yeah, some car issues and things like that really kind of derailed that whole weekend. So bit of a write-off. Obviously, we've got Thruxton next. He's always run very, very well at that circuit. I'll be interested to see how the car performs there. And I remember year on year he performed very well when he was in the Mercedes A-Class with Sicily. Always got some good results there. Even when the team switched to the BMW 3 Series, he was quick round there. So I think actually, going into Thruxton, people always say about Josh Cook, which, rightly so, he is the king of Thruxton, but Adam Morgan is also a really safe bet, especially if you're doing the fantasy Btcc competition. I think he's a good one to have in your team.
Yeah, I hope so. It feels it's very encouraging straight away. We've only done some very limited running. We did 6 laps in a circle at Myra yesterday, came here today, so there's still lots and lots of stuff we have to tick off with Cosworth, with M Sport, before we start doing some real setup work. But it's already confidence boosting, and I think when we get to the point where we can start doing some real setup work, it should be very, very good.
Place is Tom Chilton. After a really strong couple of years with the Team Virtue outfit and Accelerate Motorsport, it's been a challenging one for Tom Chilton. He's been unlucky. He's been caught out in a few incidents, and cool, that didn't sound healthy. But yeah, it's been an unlucky start to the season for him, because he has high standards. He's been in the championship a long time. The Hyundai, yes, it's one of the quickest cars on the grid still, but it's been a little bit unreliable, I would say, this season. They didn't have much testing ahead of the year, but he's been doing this long enough to fight back when he needs to, and he's had a few of those, starting from the back of the grid, fighting through to the top 10 or whatever. Obviously had a little bit of beef with Charles Rainford here at Snetterton a couple of months back when the championship was here in the qualifying race, when both drivers got their elbows out. But we like to see that. It's, at the end of the day, touring car racing, it's pantomime, isn't it?
And I need to have a good weekend this weekend, because I've had 2 very bad weekends so far. So it's really going to help if I can qualify. I want to qualify on the front row, I want to qualify pole. Yeah. But if I can qualify at the front, it's going to really, really help me score some good points. I mean, last year I managed to go away with some silverware, and I'm hoping I can go away with 1 or 2 this weekend, because it's going to help with where I am in the championship, because it gives me 20 seconds of Tox Turbo Boost. So there's no reason I shouldn't really be on the front row really in qualifying. It's just those pesky BMWs, because with the new Super Soft this year, and it being very hot, and a BMW being better on its tyres, I know they've got a genuine advantage on paper. So they should be rapid, but it's tricky, this circuit, because it's 3 miles long. It's lots of corners, and for these younger kids up at BMW who are still learning, it's very easy to make a mistake. So I'm hoping, with a bit of luck and my experience, I can out-qualify them and out-race them, is what I'm hoping. But it's so close, this championship. We've seen this year it's insanely close. I've had some fun though, as much as I haven't got any trophies so far in the first 2 rounds. I've actually had some really good recovery drives after being hit off from last to fifth, things like that. It's been very exciting for me. Like, I've really, really enjoyed the racing, and as you know, I do the British Touring Cars, so I like the racing. So I've done an awful lot of it, but I'd actually like a little bit less racing this weekend and a bit more just click gears and get some trophies at the front. That's what I want this weekend. So we'll be giving it everything we got.
Almost into the top 10 then in 11th place, and it is Aaron Taylor-Smith. And it's been a really good start to the season for him after a bit of a shaky start last year to his time at Toyota. That switch to kind of staying in the same car, but the new surroundings of the MB Motorsport team, working with new people, has really paid off. A lot of people were concerned about the team, the MB Motorsport outfit switching from the BMW garage to Toyotas, but for the most part I think it's paid off. Maybe the overall pace isn't there all of the time, and sometimes a race win has to be achieved from a reverse grid, but that race 2 at Brands Hatch, I think that's been my favourite race of the season. He drove absolutely amazing in challenging conditions. It could have been very easy for him to chuck that car off at Paddock Hill or whatever, and a lot of drivers did. That's probably the best I've ever seen Aaron Taylor-Smith drive, and that was on pure pace. Well, there was no kind of tyre advantage there or anything like that. He drove that perfectly. So maybe later in the season, or this Great British Summer, if we have some more sort of wet, changeable, greasy conditions on track, be another opportunity for him to get another win. But overall, what a start to the season for him. Just needs a little bit more consistency.
Yeah, I feel like that's the nature of this beast. You want to stay as far ahead of the curve as physically possible. I have an amazing partner network behind me that support this journey, so we knew kind of what our aspirations were and where we wanted to go this year. When an opportunity came to join Laser Tools Racing, we had to jump at it. You look at Craig Porley, who's the technical director, a championship winning engineer. It's the first time in my career that I've had one on my car. So it was a huge draw. So then it allowed us to focus on the nitty gritty, focus on pre-season development and testing. Because when drivers get signed in February or even March, you've missed the winter months. You can't build a program around what you need from the car. So that's been the big thing. Getting a jump on it and getting probably a 3-month head start has made a really big difference.
So into the top 10 men, and in 10th place it is Aidan Moffat, and got to say probably one of the most happy starts to the season of recent years for him, and consistent I suppose, which is in this game very important. He's had a couple of challenging seasons where he's the last however many years on the bounce actually he's swapped teams for varying reasons. There's no reason to judge that, and lots of things have to line up to get a deal together in touring cars. But after especially of recent years, where he obviously got that win in the Toyota at the opening round of 2024, and then the rest of that season was a bit of a struggle for him. And last season, it was an exciting concept, him going to BMW, being back in a rear-wheel drive, but unfortunately it didn't quite work out, and quite an unlucky driver in the sense that he joins West Surrey and BMW in the 1 year where they were having a bit of an off time, and they hadn't quite maybe judged the regulations with certain things and set up. So unfortunate actually on that front. But yeah, exciting when it was sort of announced to fans that he was joining Paramax Racing for this year. With obviously we already knew that they were bringing the Audi, so a cool kind of concept for him to be able to join a team and help develop and bring in a brand new car is pretty exciting. Obviously, he was kind of part responsible for that back in the day with the Infinity. But yeah, even still, it's been a steady start to the season for him. I think it's a shame he's not, maybe got a few more trophies along the way, but, especially his start to the season at Donington, where the car ran particularly well. He was very consistent, stayed out of trouble, and I think he left that opening round in third in the championship. So, yeah, really strong. He's up there fighting in the Independence Trophy, which, isn't a surprise. I expect all three kind of PMR drivers to be up there fighting for that title. So yeah, overall of recent seasons, it's been a strong start, and most importantly, a strong foundation for him to build on and get some better results even later in the season as well.
I think in this day and age, the regs have been out so long that everybody knows what there is to know about the cars. So I think you should be able to build the right car and go out from the offset and be there or thereabouts. There was a time gone by you build a car and expect to suffer for half a season, so hopefully we can kind of get going fairly quick, but if not, I think it's I think it's a great package. I think the team have done a fantastic job, so we'll keep chipping away. So it'll be interesting to see where we are.
Another Scottish driver in 9th place then is Gordon Shedden. Once again, another driver who he stayed driving the Toyota, but different outfit with the Laser Tools MB Motorsport squad. And I've got to say, that race-free drive here at Snetterton was probably one of the best drives I've seen in touring cars. We got to a point that Snetterton weekend where we all came to the conclusion that that new shaped Ford Focus is an absolute rocket ship, and especially on a circuit round here at Snet with long straights, and you've got to get the setup right with the technical bit over there. Ash Sutton and Matt Carr looked pretty unstoppable. So when he clawed through the field and caught up onto the back of Gordon Shedden, we kind of expected him to go through pretty easily. But obviously Shedden's been doing this a long time. He knows every trick in the book, and it's not like he even drove in a dirty manner. He didn't push Sutton wide or anything. He just defended when he needed to and got away and got on the loud pedal when he needed to. So, yeah, great drive from him there. Fairly consistent the rest of the time. He had a strong start at Donington at the opening round, got a podium, and I think he said himself, like, sometimes that, him and perhaps the team don't, have the strongest of starts to the seasons. But, yeah, no, brilliant start to the season for him so far. And, yeah, he'll be pleased and be looking to get another win later on in the season.
Yeah, it's good. It's a great partnership that MB have got with Speedworks. So obviously it's an evolution of last year. For me, it's lovely to stay for a second year in familiar surroundings. So we go into the season with our eyes open, knowing what where we need to improve and what we need to do, and to try and take the challenge to a couple of the others. So yeah, it certainly won't be through a lack of trying.
In 8th place is Josh Cook at Toyota, and it's a shame really. He's one of these drivers who has definitely had the potential to be a champion and definitely win races this year, but he's had a lot of bad luck, a lot of punctures. That first round at Donington, he was right in the fight with Rowbottom and Sutton and Ingram. Well, Sutton before he got binned off, but he was right up there in the quali race and race 1, looking for a solid P2, pushing on the leaders for a race win to start the season. But yeah, unfortunately, a lot of punctures at the start of the season, and it's a shame. But I'd like to think we come to Thruxton next round, and he's always going to be quick there. Hopefully they get the setup right on that Toyota, because obviously Thruxton was always a happy hunting ground for him in the Honda. So hopefully they get everything right with the Toyota, and he can get a really good result there, and hopefully finish the season on a high.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Good to be back in the Speedworks Corolla. They've taken a nice step forward over the winter, so excited to get underway at Donington.
Yeah, it must have been nice to sort of get that everything sort of firmed up, to be back on the grid, and yeah, you're in safe hands here with Speedworks, aren't you?
Yeah, look, we finished the season really well at the end of last year. Obviously, a win here at Brands GP in round 30, so we've improved the car again on the areas that we needed to, so I think it puts us in a good position for the season.
7th place is Powermax Racing's Mikey Doble. It's great to see him kind of leading that team now. He's been in the championship. I guess he's had a similar amount of time as Dexter Patterson, but Aidan's been in the championship a bit longer, but Mikey Doble, he's been in that team for a long time now. He's comfortable there. He obviously got his first race win here at Snetterton last year, but also inherited that win at the first weekend of the season, first race of the season, from when Tom Ingram was disqualified. Yeah, Mikey Doble, brilliant start to the season. It's an interesting concept for him now, because he's got a new responsibility of helping and leading develop a new car. Obviously, when he came into touring cars with the Astra, that shell had been out for a long time. So, he's got a new challenge, but he's doing a good job. And once they kind of finish getting setups right and on the circuits where the car is particularly well suited for, he'll continue being a championship front runner. And who knows, as long as he's back in the next year or two, he could be really fighting for the title. I would say he's a star for the future, but he's a star for now. He's got the pace.
Oh, I love British touring cars. I've always wanted to be in the championship, and yeah, this is my 4th year now in the championship. We've had a win, we've had a pole position, I've had a couple of podiums, so I've achieved a bit, and it's nice to now be able to flex my muscles in a brand new car for this year and see how far up the grid we can go.
6th place is Daryl De Leon, another sort of young, feisty up-and-coming driver, and a proper nice lad as well, someone I get on very well with, and great to interview. But yeah, it's been a good start to the season again for Daryl. It's you know, he's had his moments where, you know, weekends haven't gone to plan. You know, opening round he was a bit under the radar and got caught up with some penalties and things like that. But you know, I think he's had a strong season. Snetterton was particularly good for him. You know, the BMW ran particularly well around there, so he made the most of that. But you've got to remember, he's young. It's only his kind of third full season in the category. He has the odd moment where he maybe goes for a gap where he shouldn't have done. But you know what? He's not the only touring car driver that's guilty of doing that. Jason Plato, all through his career, you know, if there was a win on the cards, he wouldn't play the points game. He'd go for it. So, you know, people were saying last season Darrell maybe needed to, you know, organise his Sundays a little bit more, which I would agree with. But, you know, last season he got 2 pole positions on the bound. So the raw pace is definitely there. The racecraft is definitely getting stronger. And you know, I always enjoy watching him race because he does go for it. Sometimes it doesn't always go to plan, but in motorsport, that's often the way. So it's great to see actually him going for it. You know, in touring car racing, we want to see drivers sending it up the inside and getting their elbows out. It's not Formula One. We do need a bit of, not saying sending people off on purpose or anything like that, but we need that aggression, don't we?
100%. You know, I'm still one of the youngest in the championship, I think. So, and when you say I've been in it for a while, it makes me feel old. But yeah, so if you're talking about years, my first time I debuted in the touring cars was 2023 with Team Hard, halfway through the season. And now going into 2026, you could say this is my 4th year. Yeah. But for me, I think this is year number 2 with WSR, and you know, really, like with the continuity of having my engineer the same and the car the same, I think we're going to have a really strong year this time. And yeah, well, although it's good to look back on some of the memories, let's hope we can try create some more this year.
Speaking of aggression, we get into the top 5. We've got Ricky Collard, and I've got to say, I think he's been my driver of the season. Came in to the series again, proper last minute. I think he was announced on the morning of media day, but came in proper last minute. No pre-season testing aside from, you know, a handful of hours at media day. You know, he came in with sort of very, I suppose, low expectations and warned everyone that they didn't want to get their hopes up and just needed to settle back into the series after a few years away. Obviously, he went away and did GT racing, won the British GT Championship with his dad Rob, and but he's come back in straight away. You know, even in that first weekend, he had some car issues where, you know, like I said, the Hyundai hadn't been particularly reliable, but still got a race-free podium. You know, and here at Snetterton, even, you know, a circuit he hadn't driven front-wheel driving for a while, which that's a challenge. Still fought back through to get a podium, and you know, that Brands Hatch Indy weekend, so close to getting, you know, a race win. He was so quick though, so fast, and the pace has been brilliant. And the championship needs people like Ricky Collard. You know, he's a character. He brings a show. You know, here at Snetterton, where the weather was really hot, you know, he sorted out some of the marshals with cold drinks and hospitality, which is a lovely experience, and lunch and things like that. The championship needs people like him, and it will be such a shame if he doesn't, you know, finish off the season from both a points situation, because he is up there 5th in the championship, but also from, you know, the series. It needs people like him, and you know, it's getting to a point, you know, the championship is so expensive to get the funds together to secure a seat, and it's such a shame, and more needs to be done, in my opinion, to get drivers who are talented like Ricky on the grid and support for them. You know, whether it's media exposure or better marketing, I don't know what it is, and there's plenty of more people on, you know, in the industry that know how to maybe battle that a bit, but we need to support these drivers. But you know, Ricky Collard, both on and off the track, has been an absolute star this year.
A bit of a shock for me as well, mate. So, yeah, the deal come around very, very last minute. So I just need to get as many laps as possible. But unfortunately, we haven't been able to due to some technical issues. But yeah, going into the first round, we've got 4 hours testing this afternoon, which I hope we can run smoothly with no problems. And then I've got 40 minutes of practice at Donington before the first round, or qualifying. So 4 hours and 40 minutes so far, 0 laps. So it's going to be a really hard, tall order to adapt from rear-wheel drive to front-wheel drive, from GT3 to British touring car. But I've done the tracking shots. The car feels really nice. It feels very different to how I can remember.
But look, I think we'll be in the mix. It's just going to take a bit of time.
Fourth place, another fairly young driver who's sort of getting to grips with touring car racing. He's been on form this year. Charles Rainford, been a great start to the season. A couple of race wins for him already. Qualifying's been strong, which that was always a good area of his, coming from Carrera Cup, where you got to qualify well on a grid like that. But yeah, qualifying was always a strong point for him, but to get those race wins again this season has been absolutely brilliant, and I think he'll continue to build. It's they say with touring cars, it's how you deal with your bad days more than your good days, and for the most part, Brands Indy was a bit of a nightmare with contact and getting fired off in different areas and things like that, but realistically I'm not too surprised with how slippery and greasy the conditions were. It doesn't particularly play into the BMW's hands at all, but no, he's done a really good job. He's been one of the stars so far of the season, so it's been great to see how he's progressed. And like I said, it feels like it's only his second season, but it feels like he's been in the championship for much longer. It feels like he's always been there. I know, obviously, I knew him in his time of Carrera Cup and worked with him a bit then, but even still, he's a great addition to the series and a great fit over at BMW and West Surrey Racing.
Always, I always have massive high expectations myself, but yeah, even more so this year. And I want to be a title contender. I want people to think of me as a front runner in this championship. We'll see how well we do with that this year, but that has to be the goal, isn't it?
Third place, thanks to a decent amount of consistency, I think, is Dan Camish. I think he'd admit that at the start of the season he's been pretty under the radar. He went kind of very quiet some weekends, but he's been, of more recent events, he's fought back a lot stronger, in qualifying and the races, and racked up the points. So yeah, shame it was a bit of a quiet start to the season, but I think come the end of the year, there's some tracks coming up that he's ran well at. Thruxton, he's always been quick at, especially when he was in the Honda, but I think he'll still be good in the Ford, especially with the new shape of car. But yeah, Donington GP as well. I remember in recent years he's always got good results. So don't count him out just yet. Obviously the top two, who you already know who they're going to be, but they've obviously got away a little bit. But don't count out Dan Camish. He needs just a handful of good weekends and race wins and things like that. But a real staple of the championship, and I'd love to see him fight for a title in the not too distant future. Second place then is reigning champion Tom Ingram, and it's a funny one really, because if he hadn't have had so much bad luck at the start of the season, he would be really on par with Ash Sutton. I think there's no denying how quick that pairing is of Sutton and the new Ford Focus Titanium. However, and like I said, Ash Sutton, he has been so quick this season, but if you add up all the points that Ingram's lost out on, the disqualification at round one, the DNF at round one, the DNF here at Snetterton, all of those things like that, if you count out all of those things, he would be right up there. So yes, like I said, Ash Sutton is very quick. I've revealed who's first, but we all know who it is. Yes, Ash Sutton's been very quick, but if Tom Ingram hadn't have had all those reliability issues, he would be right up there. But he's been doing this long enough to know he just needs to forget about that. Round one, I think as soon as that weekend was done, it had been a complete nightmare, but he wrote it off instantly, eyes forward, and he's not a million miles off the championship lead, and he's got 6 more weekends still. We've got a long way still to go until probably a cold day in October, where the championship's decided. So he's got a long way to go. He just needs to keep racking up the points, and even if he can't beat Sutton, he needs to just keep on scoring, because who knows, weird stuff happens on finals day and in touring cars. You can't write out these drivers until the very end. And to round out our 2026 mid-season review, we've got Ash Sutton. Got to be probably the strongest start to a season I've ever seen from him, and perhaps anyone in touring cars, especially of recent years with these regulations. So many race wins. I think that's 5 already. The car is so quick, but also, I don't think we should be complaining about it, because the team have done such a good job with the development of it, setup of it, because yes, it is an evolution of the car from last year, and they've identified the issue with what was wrong with it last season and prior years with the aero and it being a hatchback, and like any good race team, they fixed that issue, and therefore they've been quicker and they've done a brilliant job of it. And that's, yes, they've done all of that and it has gone quicker, but you can't underestimate the hard work that's gone into that. And you know, yes, it's the same car, but there's going to be quirks with it. It's going to feel different with weight and obviously the shape and the error and things like that. And so it's good to, it is impressive what they've done in a short space of time again, like the Plato situation. You know, they've done a lot of work in a short space of time, and no, it is good to see. So they have done a very good job, Ash Sutton and the team. But will he be able to hold on the rest of the season? There you have it. That's our 2026 grid reviewed mid-season, I suppose you could say. We're on the summer break. Like I said, only got four weekends done so far. We've got 6 still more to enjoy, so plenty to look forward to. And yeah, keep enjoying this summer break. Long old time off, which, you know, I'm sure a lot of people are missing the Btcc. But, you know, if you're here in the UK, go and support your local club racing championships, whether that's on their, you know, YouTube live streams or at your local circuit. You know, there's plenty of good racing out there. I know a lot of you enjoy, you know, the classics or the minis or the legends, you know, all of these championships that sometimes guests appear on the Btcc grid are racing elsewhere, off and on as good packages as Toka. So go and support them, like I said, whether that's, you know, in a nice cool living room with a nice big glass of water in the hot weather or trackside. But either way, we've got plenty to look forward to later in the season. You know, Thruxton's always a good one. Knock Hill I'm looking forward to, an event I'm going up to, which will be brilliant, and plenty more to be excited about. So make sure you do subscribe to the channel for lots more of the best BTCC and British motorsport content. I've done the best part of 700 interviews, so there's plenty of stuff for you to go and watch on there. And like I said, make sure you go and subscribe, because there's plenty for you to go and enjoy, and you can follow my journey as I work hard to, you know, get my foot in the door and make a career for myself in the BTCC and British motorsport journalism. Until then, I've been your host, Louis Hedge. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.